My name is Anton, and in this video we will discuss Raspberry Pi 5 for computer vision. Raspberry Pi 5 for computer vision is a big world. Dozens of inference frameworks allow you to run your model on Raspberry Pi. For example, here is a list of the frameworks for Raspberry Pi 4. Some of them work in Python, some of them works in C++. You can check it on the site, and in this video I will tell you about the easiest ways to run your models, and probably these ways will be not the fastest ones, but the most convenient ones, especially for Python user. Let's start with a few thoughts about Raspberry Pi 5. First, it's not the best board specifically for computer vision. And here is why. First, the CPU speed is better than Raspberry Pi 4. But it's not the best CPU board on the market. Here you can look at the comparison with two different Rockchip 3588 boards. And I already had a few videos about these boards. Raspberry Pi 5 doesn't have hardware video encoding, and it's terrible. Raspberry Pi 4 has it, and almost all competitors have. You may say, what's the problem? CPU encoding is fast enough. The problem is that you can't stream video in parallel to infer it. It's pretty common functionality for the embedded devices for a lot of tasks. For example, like if you need to detect your event and start the streaming, in this case you will have a problem. Definitely it's not like 100% of tasks, but some tasks will not work with Raspberry Pi 5 and they may work with Raspberry Pi 4. Third, there is no NPU. And in my opinion, it's the most terrible point. Almost every board on the market today has it. Or convenient GPU, for example. They are much faster than CPU. And they are much more effective than CPU in terms of power. So the first problem with Raspberry Pi 5 is it's not the board for computer vision, and the second, it's super wayward board. It's super demanding for SD cards, and it's super demanding for power supplies. Of course, it's a common problem, like Raspberry Pi 3 and Raspberry Pi 4 were also demanding. But from my 7 SD cards, 3 of them works for older Raspberry Pis, but only one of them works here. From my power supply units, I think all of them works for Rockchip units, a few of them, 3 or 4, works for Raspberry Pi 4, but none of my power supply units can supply Raspberry Pi 5 enough. Of course, it's easy buy a new unit for $10, but it's less than 1% of power supply units on the market can supply Raspberry Pi 5, and you need to think about this. And the power supply is recommended is 30 watt, more than Jetson Nano. So my 3 ampere power supply unit is not enough. You need 5 ampere and the constant 5 volt for this. I think that it's not excellent, but of course you can just buy specific power supply unit and it will be okay. Let's go to the tests, and at the end of the video I will tell you why the Raspberry Pi 5 anyway is pretty good board for computer vision. So in my tests, I tested 3 frameworks: TFLITE, ONNX-RUNTIME, and NCNN. All 3 of them are available for Python. In theory, MNN is a bit faster, but there is no pre-built Python wheel for Raspberry Pi 5. When I tried to build it half a year ago for Raspberry Pi 3 and Raspberry Pi 4, I did not succeed. Here are the results of my test. As you can see, NCNN is the fastest among other popular frameworks. It's the same results I already have for different boards. In terms of comparison Raspberry Pi with different boards on the market, Raspberry Pi 5 is pretty fast, but of course it's slower than Rockchip boards with good NPUs like Rockchip 3588. It's worse than special AI accelerators like Halo. It's worse than Jetson's family. The closest board to Raspberry Pi 5, in my opinion, it's Rockchip 3. It's Rock P3A based on Rockchip 3568. But this board, like Rockchip, is cheaper and doesn't require such power supply. So, in my opinion, like Raspberry Pi 5, a bit worse than cheaper board. But of course, we will discuss the pluses of Raspberry Pi 5 a bit later. And it's okay board for this price. And definitely it's better than a lot of older boards, like Coral board, for example, like older Raspberry Pis, like Hadas, and it's cheaper than them. Let's talk a bit about how you can run your neural networks on Raspberry Pi 5. If you have a classification network, usually this code is enough. You can export your PyTorch network to ONNX with this simple script. It doesn't work for 100% of networks. For example, you may check one of my previous videos about Dyna V2, and there was some extension to the script, but usually for the classification networks, 90% will work with it. If you have a detection networks, you probably have a YOLO family network. Usually you can export, usually all of them already have script to export, something like this. And you, in case if they don't have, usually you can export with the same script as a classification network. After that, you need to export your network to NCNN. Official documentation recommends you to use this approach. But for research, I use much easier approach. There is already existing site where you can just select your model and export it. As far as I understand, this site doesn't send you model anyway and run the export locally. But of course, if you need existing pipelines and security, you need to compile official approach. After that, you can run your NCNN model with this easy script. And in my opinion, it's super easy and it's the most convenient approach to run your neural networks on Raspberry Pi 5 with a good speed. Of course, for LLM models, there is a little bit different approach usually, but for computer vision, it's the most convenient one. Let's return to the question why Raspberry Pi 5 is good board. It's pretty fast. As you can see, it's faster than a lot of older networks, and even older boards, they were good enough for a lot of tasks. So definitely you can solve a lot of different computer vision tasks on Raspberry Pi 5. It's cheap. It's really good CPU for this price. Not the best one, but good enough. And like the Rockchip 3588 that I use for comparison is a bit more expensive. So probably you can't even find better CPU model for this price. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like this. Raspberry Pi 5 is popular. You can find a lot of guide, a lot of project, lot of existing pre-built libraries, a lot of tips and tricks, and it's just make your life easier. So working with Raspberry Pi, usually it's more convenient than working with Rockchip. It has a PCI Express bus, which allow you to use different M2 accelerators. Check one of my previous video about which accelerators are available on the market. And with M2 accelerator, you can run your networks much faster than on the CPU. So that's all. I think that in one of my next videos, I also will discuss different networks, probably LLM networks for Raspberry Pi 5, but write in the comment if you're interested in it. So thank you for your attention. Bye.